Alright guys, Copper Cutlass here, and Merry Christmas. It's Christmas Eve. We're just kind of hanging around. We're waiting for Santa Claus to come by and drop off more car parts. Haha, now everything's already here. Because I dropped off everything earlier in the week. So, during the week, I went over to the machine shop. My good buddy, Dave the Freak, or 67 Cutlass Freak, as some of you guys may know him from the forums. Um, I took my block up to TNT Race Engines in Gurney, which he moonlights at, and I got to use their jet washer to clean this out. Cleaned it all out and oiled it down, and it's waiting for final assembly cleaning. So residual gasket material, bottle brushes, all that good stuff. We also polished the crank. It had a couple of minor surface scratches. The Scotch-Brite pad on the crank polisher took care of all that stuff. Thanks to the owner for showing us how to use the crank polishing machine there, since Dave pretty much just specializes in cylinder heads there. But I went ahead and I actually was able to take care of the crank polishing. I was pretty comfortable with that. I ran plenty of lathes and kind of pretty much what the game is about. So that was Wednesday, and then last weekend I went over by my friend Mylan's. Some of you guys may know him in the Oldsmobile world. Awesome builder, very knowledgeable. He's actually the guy who's been helping me with all the carb advice, and he's helped me out over the years a lot with a lot of the carburetor advice and getting me going in the right direction. So not only did we go through my carburetor after I went through it, we did a quick little blueprint on my oil pump, because on the big end, this oil pump barely made 60 pounds of oil pressure. That's at about 7,000 RPM. So he shimmed it, springed it, put it in his, whole deal, spun it up, and makes 75 pounds of oil pressure, which is more than enough. And then, so let's talk carburetors here. So there was a couple of changes made. We changed the nozzles. I got my sheet over here, and I'll read it off as I'll kind of, we went from a 37 to a 33 nozzle. The air bleeds that I drilled out remained the same. The high speeds are 26. The jetting that I put in it, we kept. It actually worked out just by sheer luck. I went with the jetting that I did based off of the carburetor that was on the car. I knew was a little fat. So I went with 82s in the back, 72s in the front with a power valve, on the theory that, 10 jet sizes and all that stuff that we've all heard. But there's actually an equation, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So the power valve channel, the two little holes when you take the power valve out, those were at 54 thousandths. And I guess I got a little ahead of myself. But so either way, in the metering blocks, on these particular metering blocks, they had idle feed restrictions up top, which I think I showed in the other video. But they left the stock restrictions in, which are lower in the well. So you had two sets of restrictions, which to me doesn't make sense. Mylan had a theory on it, but we drilled those out and left just the restrictions at the top, and those ended up being 37 thousandths. I did make a mistake when I added the 50cc accelerator pump, and I accidentally put in the yellow pump cam, which is actually for a Dominator carb, so it's for the incorrect shaft size. He had the correct one, and on the secondary side, he put a blue pump cam with a properly positioned, the flat to the flat, and then when you crack open the throttle, it will, well, I got it on a block, but as soon as you crack it, it starts to aggressively deliver that fuel. He drilled it and put a screw in it, and same deal as he's got on some of his other carburetors on his uberly super nice stuff. A lot of eye candy at his workshop. But either way, what we have now should work pretty good. I can't wait till we get some warmer weather so I can at least try to drive it and see what happens, but that won't happen for a little bit. We just had like a polar vortex, and it's actually kind of cold down here right now. So back to the power valve channel. The two little holes where the power valve goes. So that would be your power valve. The power valve orifice measured out at 54 thousandths. And there's an equation on figuring out the jetting of the carburetor based on the overall area. And there's a chart that you can follow. But the equation is pretty simple. So say that those two little holes where the power valve goes, this is just an imaginary number. We just put this on here for... Mylan actually wrote this down for me. My handwriting's not this neat. That's my handwriting. So let's say the little passages for the power valve are 30 thousandths. You divide it by 2, you end up with 15. You multiply it by itself, and then you multiply that by pi, which is 3.14. And then that equals your entire area. Now, based off of your area, you're going to choose the primary jetting. And then from there, since you're not going to run a power valve on the back, you go 10 jet sizes higher. And then the whole idea is that when the power valve opens, you will have a square carb. And so the reason why you want to run a power valve on the primary side is so you don't end up with a ton of fuel. Mylan runs a primary power valve on all of his race engines. So I'm going to trust him on that, and it makes sense that you're not dumping excessive amounts of fuel, and the whole thing is that everything that he was telling me was supported by the symptoms that we had at the track. We had the intake loading up, especially with the dual plane on the J-headed 350. The car didn't want to idle. We were fouling out plugs. We were just dumping excessive amounts of fuel. And when you consider the amount of time that you're going down the quarter mile, you're actually idling around the pits and low speed driving a lot more than on the big end. So when you're partly on the throttle, you're getting a lot of fuel that you don't need, especially when you're driving around on the primary side. So at least that's my understanding. So the jetting that I had on there worked out. And I'm glad I brought the carburetor. Again, big shout out and big thank you to Mylan. He took care of me. And then once my course is done, I'm going to call this my course because I still have to put this in the car, get the AFR working, and work with him. Now, he explained all of the mods and why you do them. And we agreed that there's a lot of secrecy to carburetors that really shouldn't be. And it's actually quite basic. Once I saw him working and he explained things to me, it all made sense. A lot of the theory that I have read backed up a lot of the modifications because even though you're modifying the carburetor, you're still working on some pretty basic theoretical concepts. So, yeah, everything made sense. And then when I go to do this carburetor, that's going to be like graduation, right? So I have to get my AFR gauge working, get some street miles on it, and see what it's doing so that not only during part throttle, full throttle, and everything, we can start really dialing in the circuits. For now, this is like a really, really advanced baseline because I got it working pretty good. And then Mylan made adjustments, and he caught, obviously, the mistake with the pump cam, which was actually kind of messing with the throttle blades. So big thank you to Mylan for that, and big thanks to Dave for taking care of the cylinder heads. I owe him a couple favors for that. And for allowing me to come in after hours at the machine shop and hanging out with him and being able to polish my crank, clean my block, and all that. So we're pretty much ready to go on the engine. I'm kind of holding off for now. I got a couple things going on. and you know, we're gonna probably start blueprinting stuff. I'm probably gonna start blueprinting stuff here pretty soon. Just start jotting down numbers. My whole engine's gonna get blueprinted again, even though this already ran. It's gonna get blueprinted. We're gonna measure everything out, and I'll make videos on that, and we'll measure again everything out, clean the block, and I have to still set up a method of lifting engines down here, which I already got a game plan, and setting up a cart and a ramp to get down here. But that's not a big deal. Neither here nor there, nor important. The important thing is that we're working down here, and we're going to be able to document for you guys what we're doing a little bit better because of that, I think. You know, so I've made this video probably a little longer than I should, but I think I touched on subjects that needed to touch on. So share, like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram on as Copper Cutlass. If I butchered anything, I'm sorry, guys. Again, I'm learning as I'm going here, and but I'm learning a lot about carburetors, and hopefully once we get everything together and everything completely is done, I think once the carburetor is dialed in, the J-headed 350, I think it's going to go even faster than it went. 11:58 first time out with no real refinement. Just put it together, get it to the track. We didn't do any jetting or anything at the track. It was just, I made a timing change and I did some minor stuff, but nothing major. So again, I keep going on and on. All right, so I'll let you guys go. Bye.